healthy firms, a healthy economy, and healthy people. If growth in the pursuit of profit destroys the environment, and we cannot have a healthy environment if people live in poverty, ill-fed, without decent housing, healthcare, education, or economic opportunity. Good evening. Ready? Yes. Okay. My name is Lisa Ryan. Tonight I'm going to talk about homelessness and the climate crisis from the perspective of the people I have the pleasure of serving during my work in Moncton, New Brunswick. Each one of the individuals that will be shown behind me died while living in homelessness. They died due to illness and disease caused by living in the elements for so long. Each life was cut short because of a rapidly changing climate environment, and they suffered the deadly effects of a very ill and greedy society. Climate change has disproportionately more significant impacts on people and impoverished people and people experiencing homelessness globally. It is even more dire for those who are without shelter or inadequately housed. These impacts are particularly pronounced for girls and women, Indigenous populations, and low-income households. When communities refuse to allow affordable housing developments in their area, they are placing a death sentence on their neighbors. The longer people remain unhoused, the more vulnerable they become to the devastating impacts of more and more extreme weather events. Because of rising temperatures and more frequent heat waves, most folks are experiencing heat-related illnesses and death, all very preventable. This is not limited to the population experiencing homelessness either. This has massive impact on seniors and young children who are precariously housed. Because of fluctuating weather during the winter, more and more folks are suffering from cold-related illness and death. And because of the rise of extreme weather events, more and more folks are finding themselves without a home and without an option to move forward. A changing climate threatens to undermine the past 50 years of gains in public health, disrupting the well-being of communities and foundations on which health systems are built. These efforts act to exacerbate existing inequalities with vulnerable populations within and between countries affected more frequently and with a more lasting impact. That's from the 2020 report of the Lancet Council on Health and Climate Change. Globally, there are over 100 million people experiencing homelessness and over 1 billion who are precariously housed. The number of climate refugees trying to find a safe and sustainable place to raise their families is increasing. The millions of homeless, dislocated, and exposed people suffering the effects of extreme weather represents a healthcare and a humanitarian crisis. This crisis is not being substantially addressed in existing disaster and risk mitigation plans. Take, for instance, the last extreme weather event that we just had, Hurricane Lee. Did you know that people experiencing homelessness must find alternative options other than the warming centers that are set up for citizens? They are forced to be segregated from the general population and served by agencies who are already struggling to deal with many very frequent day-to-day and often deadly emergencies that folks experiencing homelessness face and are under-equipped to deliver emergency response services on the best of days. Homeless populations face unique vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities lead to serious mental and physical health consequences, which creates an added strain on the healthcare system as well as the justice system. Furthermore, the prevalence of homelessness globally is increasing due to the climate and weather vulnerabilities of marginalized persons. Homelessness is not just a housing issue. It is a healthcare issue. It is a justice issue. It is suicide prevention. And it is a climate change issue. Sustainably built, energy efficient, and affordable housing is part of the climate change solution and can alleviate the impact of climate-related illness and death. Housing literally saves lives. The length of time we sit on our hands and point our fingers will determine the level of suffering and death within our communities. This was an encampment I had the pleasure of working in. This is one of the individuals who is now working as a lived experience person on the ground, and he is fantastic, and he's been able to find a life because he was able to get housing. When you hear housing is a human right, know that that means housing for all. It's not just for the rich. It's not just for the employed. Housing is a fundamental human right. Without it, we just all have nowhere to go, nowhere safe to go. And all of us, if we're faced in that position, all of us would face certain death from living in a very harsh environment. A lesson all of these folks learned way too early in their life, and a lesson many more are going to learn against their will. We have to take the housing crisis that we are in right now very seriously. This is not something that we can ignore, because people are dying. My people are dying. In the past 3 years, I have lost 78 of my clients, all because they lived outside and did not have access to housing or health care. They are moved aside and pushed away because of the life that they live. It's the impact of a greedy and ill society. This is of no fault of their own. Poverty is not a fault of an individual. It is a fault of a society that prioritizes the individual over the community. That is what we're facing right now. This is what people are fighting for. This is what our Indigenous communities have been fighting for, with resistance from all of us. This is another encampment I had the honor of working with him. Many people lived there. There was about 90 folks lived there with an amazing community. But they were told to move, and many of them have passed. So, when my last slide comes up, which I think is the next slide, my question is, without housing, where do we go? What do we do? Where do they go? Let's invite them into our community and welcome our neighbors. Thank you.